Southampton. Uh, where else were we just before? Malvern. So we're going to Darlington after this, and then we're going Eastbourne, and then Southend. So and then Wales next year, and
So
all around basically.
how has all that tourism been under COVID?
Hello. We appear to just have Lewis on the main screen taking it over. But welcome. My name's Ash Price. I'm joined by
Oliver Jiggins, hello.
and we're from the Edinburgh Horror Festival, and we are having a discussion, a chat with some of the cast of The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. We are joined by Lewis Cope, who is taking up the main screen right now. Hello, Lewis.
Hi.
We are joined by Rose Quenton. Hello, Rose.
Hi.
Hi. Hopefully the screens will transition a bit so that we actually get the main speaker. And Lewis, you're beautiful, but we would like to see everyone else as well. And we are joined as well by Bill Ward. Bill, hi.
Hi. Hi. Thanks for having us.
Excellent.
Bill has managed to take over the screen there. Fantastic.
Fantastic. Okay, we're not, but we're okay. We're not the important ones here. So, The Legend of Sleepy Hollow is an adaptation of the Washington Irvine story from the 19th century, which most people will know as the tale of the Headless Horseman. We'll talk a little bit about the play and the influences on the play from the story, because adapting it is quite a tricky thing to do. But before we kind of get into exactly what the play is, can we just introduce our characters, please? Bill, as you're on screen now, tell us a little bit about who you are.
Who I play in the in the play?
Yeah.
All sorts of people. We're all multi-rolling. So this is a play with about 20, 22, 23 characters in. So we're all playing quite a few. I play the head of the village of Sleepy Hollow, who's an original. He's about 200 years old, and he's an immigrant called Baltus van Tassel, and of Dutch lineage, as are a number of people in the village. And then I play various other people. One of his ancestors, who's a mad Dutch sea captain. Another lady in the village, a 95-year-old cook called Zinnia Pin, who's violent and quite vicious, and then a coachman who drives Ichabod Crane, who is the incomer into the village of Sleepy Hollow, into town. So those are my main guys.
Okay. Rose, who do you play?
I play Katrina Van Tassel. Mainly her. The stories within the stories are the villagers telling the stories that are real people, but they are still the villagers telling it. So I play Katrina, who's the daughter of Baltus.
Okay. And Lewis, tell us a little bit about your character or characters.
My character is Brom Van Brunt. He's also one of the villagers. He kind of gets himself in a little bit of a mess with Ichabod Crane, who's the incomer that comes in. And yeah, it's the only character that I play.
Okay. How long have you been doing the show? How long has it been going for?
He's also one of the villagers. I think this is now our 7th venue. So we've basically been doing 1 week in each new venue. We were rehearsed for 3 weeks before that. So we've been doing it for like almost 3 months now.
Oh, excellent. Going well?
Yeah, everyone's really enjoying it, and it's really good. We've got a few more venues this year, and then we pick back up in January, and we do, I think, 9 venues in the new year.
Oh, wow. Okay. I'm just going to pass over to Oliver, because Oliver's been able to see the show already, so we'll have a little bit more to kind of talk about and ask. So, Oliver.
Well, first of all, just one question sort of leading off what Ash said. Have you found any differences? Obviously, this is a very spooky show. There's also quite a few effects, and you guys do quite a lot of movement stuff, and there's a lot of choreography. So you don't have to name names if you don't want to, but have there been venues that you guys have found worked better, some that you've had to change things slightly for? How's that been across 7 venues?
Yeah, there's obviously different venues have got different space, backstage mainly, which is obviously we use the wings quite a lot with bringing props on and off. So sometimes we'll have to kind of rework where those go or how we bring them on or where they sit at the backstage. So each venue is really different, to be honest, and it feels so different. Would you agree, Bill?
Yeah, totally. So backstage, it definitely makes a big difference, but also front stage, I find. I think we all do. With the because of the nature of the piece, it's quite immersive and it's quite dark. And as a piece, but also with the lighting stakes and all of that. So the places that we tend to find work well are the ones where the audience are nearly with you on the stage, really, and then you're kind of all in it together, and you build a world together. And so for this particular piece, I think we've tended to find, and the King's Theatre actually is brilliant for that, which is where we are this week, is that the audience are very close to the action. And I think we all tend to find it, the closer the audience are, the more involved they can be. And with this kind of a thing, which is very much, because it was written, 1820, I think, and the world that Philip Meeks, the writer, who's done an extraordinary job on the adaptation, and the world itself is quite an unusual one. And so the more you can take an audience with you, the better we find it, and the closer they are to the action, that really helps with that.
Any thoughts, Rose?
Yeah, well, I agree. Obviously, we're all in it together, and we're all on stage so much of the time. So a lot of what we all feel is what we all feel as a company. So it's nice to see the different spaces, really. So what's been said.
Obviously, you guys, as Bill said, there's quite an ensemble character to this, with a lot of multi-roles, though apparently Rose denies that she is playing more than one role.
Well, we do, but Bill does play different characters in the village. I just kind of stay Katrina.
But you also do have there's some ensemble bits, for example, when you're rebuilding the school, etc., with a lot of movement stuff. That feels very collaborative. Was that all in the script, or did you guys input, and was there stuff that got changed?
Bill does play different characters in the village. I just stay Katrina. Does anyone take Chris Cummings, our movement director, helped create the transitions and the feeling of always Ichabod being an outsider. So we kind of always move as an ensemble, all the villagers, and Ichabod kind of moves more singularly. So that was sort of Chris's idea on how to, between the scenes, there's a lot of time changing. So when he arrives in the village to when the story's being told of Hallowmas, which is our big festival, there's a lot of changing between that. So to get the audience to kind of go, oh, is this next week? Is this in a couple months' time? We want them to go, this is a time change. This is a movement on of time. So that's sort of why we kind of use them. Yeah.
And there's some practical stuff of getting stuff on and off.
That too.
Sorry, I just dipped off. There was a slight technical issue. We were getting feedback there, so I apologise if you've just covered this with Oliver, but I'm a magician, so I'm really excited to know more about the magic involvement, because you had a illusionist on board, didn't you, to assist with this. So what was that like, working with magic? Because I know I'm from originally a theatre background, and transitioning into magic, it helped having the theatre background. So has that helped? Is it really, really far out there for you and new, or is it something that you got on board with quite quickly?
Rose and Lewis, you take this, because you're a big part of one of the illusions.
Well, Philippe actually started as a magician first, and then found his way into theatre after, as an illusionist, working on shows in the West End and stuff. And yeah, it was really good. He's so passionate. He really gets it. He can see an image, and he knows exactly what he wants to create. And he was great working with him, because it's a different way of working. You know, when you're working with a director or a movement director, you're kind of used to that because you've done it before. But it's personally my first time working with a magician or an illusionist on a show. So that was really, really, really fun, and it was really interesting trying to see what he sees and then trying to make it happen. But he was great. He broke everything down. He was all constantly taking videos so we could watch it back, and always trying to improve on angles and everything else. How did you find it, Rose?
Good. Like Lewis was saying, it's such a different mindset to usually doing stuff in theatre, even choreography. It's a completely different thing, because you're sort of And one of the illusions, which is kind of like our main one with me, Lewis, and Ichabod, it's sort of, we're trying to see what the audience, we're trying to obscure so many things. But hopefully it's pretty magical and it comes
Yeah, I was
off
going to say,
well.
have you guys, obviously you're seeing it from the back, have you guys actually got to see how the illusions work live at all, or are you still just...
We've seen it on a video.
Right.
Unfortunately,
I would like to see it in the thing though.
It looked really good, guys. Yeah, there was a lot of... I guess I shouldn't spoil any of it, but there's at least 3 that really stuck in my mind, which I really loved. I guess this one isn't too much of a spoiler, but everything to do with the shadows and the kind of the back projection stuff at the beginning of Act 2 was very, very cool. But yeah, I guess this is a dead end to the conversation, as we probably can't go too much into
Yeah,
detail.
without spoiling it a little too much. So obviously the original story, those who know it will know that the horseman element, I guess the horror element of Sleepy Hollow doesn't really come into it till very, very near the end. And a lot of it is about Ichabod and his desires for I believe it's a school teacher. So it does create a lot of challenges, I guess, in adapting. And the Burton version took the names and the idea of a horseman, and that's it. The Disney one was a little bit more faithful. So what kind of challenges and what type of changes have you had to make to bring it to the stage? Bill?
Well, I guess when you adapt anything, you have the shell of an idea, and then after, particularly with a short story, and a lot of writers look for short stories to adapt, because you get to input your own beginning, middle, and end essentially within the construct of the story itself. And having, like everybody here, having read the original, there's not much to it. I mean, it's an unusual story, and it's a very imaginative story. And of course, the thing that everybody knows about, as you say, is the Headless Horseman, which who Philip Meeks, our writer, reckons is one of the first sort of American monsters, really, one of the first American monsters in American literature. So that's what you have, and it's not much. The original story is only about 20 pages long. So if you're going to take this on as an idea, what you have to do as certainly as a writer, but also as a director, and as a company and as a movement director, and for us as a company of actors, is create the world of the story itself. And so you've got the shell, the idea of Ichabod Crane, an outsider coming into a back of Beyond Village called Sleepy Hollow, where stuff happens. Exactly what that stuff is entirely up to the imagination of the writer. All that really happens in the story is that we know that Ichabod Crane at the end gets chased away by the Headless Horseman, and it's not even clear in the story itself who the Headless Horseman is, whether the Headless Horseman actually exists, or if actually in the story itself, whether it's just Brom Van Brunt mucking about. And that is the strong suggestion of the story itself. But most of the adapters who've taken this on do tend to suggest something more supernatural at the end. And that's certainly a route that we happen to go down in this particular production. I don't want to give too much away, but that's certainly the route we go down in this production. So what you've got is the shell of a story. And then after that, it's up to whatever the particular writer who's been moved enough to take the project on. It's up to them really to fill in the blanks, and that's what Philip's done, along with Jake Smith, our fabulous director, and it was all very collaborative. So we had 3 weeks in the rehearsal room with the writer, with Philip and Jake there, with Chris and with Philippe as well. And so it was just one of the most creative rehearsal periods I've ever had. It was because ideas came from everywhere, and it was a genuinely wonderful thing to have been a part of, and we've all been very grateful for putting the gig together. Really
excellent. Sorry, I was interrupting there, Lewis. You were going to
Sorry,
say
Ash, you carry on.
So I was just going to say, actually, you mentioned the 3 weeks in the rehearsal space. Obviously, the world is still a little bit weird right now. So what was
Which
it
world?
like rehearsing such a large piece like this, with lots of characters, with the magic and all of that, and touring around the UK to each of the different UK countries with their own different types of rules and conditions in place? What was it like bringing a full production into life during this? If any of you have any particular thoughts on that?
Obviously, it's challenging for a lot of people at the moment to do anything. But I think everyone's kind of like had an agreement. We've all came together. We've all stayed super safe. We've all looked after each other. We've all, followed the guidelines. We've been testing often and doing all of the stuff that we should. But yeah, it's so nice to actually, and audiences have actually been coming, which is great, because at this time you think, it could be a bit of a disaster, but we've had great houses. People have seemed to enjoy it, and I'm so glad that we've managed to actually make it happen.
Excellent. It's been one of the nice things, sort of from the audience perspective, is it's when you're surrounded by people who are laughing or screaming and occasionally swearing. It does bring something to the experience of seeing something on stage again.
Yeah. I kind of, we've talked a bit about the supernatural, and I think before we do kind of draw the chat to the end, I think we've got to ask, have any of you ever had any type of supernatural spooky experience, something that's really been difficult to explain?
I have, actually.
Yeah. Come on, tell us.
One. But I don't know whether it was a dream.
It's a great way to start.
Yeah, we'll cut that bit. We'll cut that bit. Go on.
I was when I was younger, I think I must have been about 10. I woke up in the middle of the night. I was staying at my auntie's house. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I could see my granddad at the end of the bed, but my granddad passed away. But so the next morning I remembered it, but I don't know whether I was actually awake or whether it was a dream, and I still don't know.
Well, that's part of the fun of the supernatural, isn't it? The not knowing, the not quite sure.
Yeah.
Rose, Bill, anything of your own? Or as an alternative to that, if you don't, because Edinburgh Horror Festival and all that, favorite spooky story that can be fiction.
Sleepy Hollow.
One of the theatres we were at in Oldham, that's apparently the Oldham Coliseum is the most haunted theatre in the UK. That might be wrong. Please don't quote me on that. But apparently the guy who didn't adhere to the Scottish play, the rules of it in Macbeth, and apparently got stabbed during it and died. I don't know if that's true. I read it. Cool. It's the most theatrical one I can think of. Bill, anything?
Yeah, there's a lot of theatres are sort of well known to have ghosts, and as a profession, the theatrical profession is quite superstitious, and because a lot of the buildings that we'll be working in are very old, going back 200 years, some of them 300 years. And all of that stays with a building. I'm a photographer when I'm not an actor. And I take photographs of buildings, particularly theatres, particularly old theatres, particularly auditoriums and backstage of old theatres. And there is an energy in these places that comes from everybody who has been in them. And it's tangible, and you notice it. And I love it. I love theatres. The older, the better, actually, because, like I say, there is just a sense of what has been in them before, and it all sort of aggregates up. Anyway. So yeah, I mean, the only other spooky story that as we all did a fair amount of research and watching stuff for this, because it's the first horror play that I've done. I've done a horror film in the past, but first horror play, and I watched The Wicker Man, and as well as lots of the other ones that you would expect to watch, Witchfinder General and Midsummer and things like that, and Blood on Satan's Claw, but The Wicker Man I found genuinely disturbing. Because I mean it's old now, but goodness me, it's well put together. It's really well acted, really, really well acted, and there is a sense of a world that is part of our own reality and yet removed. And that's what's terrifying about it, is it could be real, it could be true, it could have happened, it may yet. And that sense of something being slightly outside of our understanding and yet within reach makes something really scary. And that's what I found really scary about The Wicker Man. You kind of go, that could happen. That could happen. But the performances in that are absolutely magnificent, and just the whole project itself, I found really spooky.
Excellent. Well, I believe you guys are playing this at the King's Theatre, which is apparently the oldest theatre in Edinburgh. So it sounds like it's the right place, one, for you guys to have come to be able to get some nice spooky photos of the old building, and for people to come and see you being spooky.
Yeah, and how long is it running for? And I assume around 7:30 start in the evenings. Are there matinees? So how can people?
2:30 matinee on Saturday. We're on every evening till then. So tonight, tomorrow, and Saturday, as well as the Saturday matinee. Do come and see us.
Well, Bill, Rose, and Lewis, thank you very much for joining us this morning. We hope the rest of the run goes fantastically well. Enjoy the rest of your stay in Edinburgh.
Thank you. Cheers, Ash and Oliver. Very good of you. Thanks for having us on.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye. Bye-bye.